League of Legends is one of the biggest video games out there in the world, and it honestly has been for a long time. The MOBA made by Riot Games has bucked the trend in many ways by taking one game and just improving it over time with new characters, levels, ability upgrades, and more, so that people have plenty to play without needing a sequel title. But now, they're going and expanding even more with an animated series that will grow the lore and characters in some new and fun ways. So allow us to show you how Arcane on Netflix is going to change League of Legends forever. League of Legends. As noted, League of Legends and related games like Teamfight Tactics, Legends of Runeterra, or Wild Rift is one of the most popular video games in the franchise. Developed by Riot Games, the franchise reached 180 million players in October, as announced by the company. Its popularity is undeniable, and with several games in development, Riot has decided to expand the stories from the franchise to new formats beyond games. In the format of an animated TV series on Netflix, Arcane is the first show extending the narrative from just the characters in the game. Its release date was just the other day, in fact. However, many fans have been wondering what time they will be able to watch the series. Arcane is going to be made up of 9 episodes. They will be divided into 3 acts that will be released on a weekly basis. Arcane will flex an episode length of approximately 40 minutes, so each act of the anime series will give you a watch time of around 2.5 hours. It will be the first Netflix show to be broadcasted by streamers since Riot Netflix have allowed that any streamer can share the official stream. Users who watch episode 1 on Twitch will get exclusive in-game items for Riot's titles via Twitch drops. So as you can see, they're trying to make Arcane not just something good for the League of Legends people, but for those who are going to keep playing even after it's aired. Arcane plot. The story of Arcane, League of Legends, is going to work as an animated prequel for some of the game's characters like Vi, Jinx, Caitlyn, Jace, and Victor. The show is aimed to develop their relationships as well as the lore of the Piltover and Zaun regions. The official synopsis of the show is the following. The delicate balance between the rich city of Piltover and the seedy underbelly of Zaun. Tensions between these city-states boil over with the creation of Hex Tech, a way for any person to control magical energy in Piltover, and in Zaun, a new drug called Shimmer transforms humans into monsters. The rivalry between the cities splits families and friends, as Arcane brings life to the relationships that shape some of League of Legends' famous champions, including Vi, Jinx, Caitlyn, Jace, and Victor. So this is absolutely meant to go and entrance those who know the games and most of the champions, while also giving a fresh look at the world itself. There's a lot of potential here. Jason Spizek and Mia Sinclair Jenis. Naturally, while the animation is one of the biggest parts of the show, so too is the voices behind the characters. 2 of them sat down for an interview and talked about certain things, including why they came onto the project. Mia Sinclair Jenis said, "I've always been a little bit familiar with League of Legends. My brother plays, and I've also just kind of always been aware of how massive and loyal the fan base is. I was also immediately just drawn to Powder as a character. The writing is brilliant. Everything about the show is brilliant. They've done such an incredible job. But Powder, I just see a lot of myself in her. There's so many reasons why I love Arcane." Jason Spizek, "For me, playing Silco, I mean, who wouldn't want to play a manipulative psychopath? I get to play a fair bit of villains. I played the Joker in Batman Hush, and when you get asked, hey, could you play this villain? I never approach it that way. A villain is just the hero of a different story. And when I read Silco for the first time, the monologue had this beauty to it. This efficiency of words, the economy of tone, and yet it was so ruthless in what it's outlining. The monologue I'm referring to is, do you ever wonder what it's like to drown? When he says that monologue at the top of episode 3, it struck me like a piercing violin note the first time I ever read those words. And the voice, it just followed right along. It was almost like a jacket I was meant to wear. They also talked about the challenges of bringing their characters to life in a rich and fulfilling way. Mia said, I already had something to go off of. Jinx is Jinx. Everyone knows Jinx. Most people love Jinx. Powder is a new character. If you look at it that way, you don't know Powder. But taking Jinx and breaking her down to see who Powder was difficult. But at the end of the day, extremely rewarding. There were some scenes in the show where Powder is going through it, to put it very lightly, and kind of tapping into those emotions and trying not to let it affect me outside of recording was difficult. But I think I know that I did my best work on those scenes and throughout the entire show. Jason followed up by saying, you did an amazing job. One of the toughest things when you get a character like Silco who runs the show behind the scenes and is the puppet master in the shadows, that's challenging. You don't want to overplay that. Silco is a very subtle character. One of the challenges when you get material is you read the words and some of them can seem very demonstrative. But it's not. It's an art of weapons that are words. If you are true to him and don't overdo it, you end up with something beautiful to watch, and you're waiting for the next move that Silco makes in his chess match. So yeah, one of the challenges was definitely not to overplay it. Christian Link and Alex Yee. They weren't the only ones to talk about Arcane though. Two of the people behind the scenes talked about bringing the lore to life in a fun and meaningful way. Christian said, well, we've been with the game and the IP for so long, it was just kind of unpacking I think a lot of what happened between the time when the characters came out and also how they became these icons for our players in the League community. So I think a lot of it was really trying to listen to our audience and how they perceive the characters. I remember when we put out, for example, Victor, Harry Lloyd, and certain stories were released, how there was kind of an outcry. We just made him too much of a tropey villain or something like that. What kind of nuance there is among the perception of our audience. So I think a lot of it was just really trying to get a good idea of what it is that makes these characters special, and you, the eyes of our audience, and trying to respect that, and then finding what we have to say. Because I think the worst thing we can do is just a bunch of fan service. So then working together to kind of go and take that and say, okay, what is actually something that we have to say with this story that we're gonna craft? Alex said, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's a very familiar position. We spent such a long time working on the world. For me, there are just so many different people who I worked with and spent a lot of time with. And for as much as you see in the game or on the websites, in the bios and the color stories, there are so many more stories that we didn't have the opportunities or the right medium to tell. So in a lot of ways, it was an embarrassment of riches. And then in some ways, it was about, gosh, how do we cut it down to just be the story that we want to tell right here, right now? But of course, I think figuring out how to translate the game to the screen definitely took a lot of learning, a lot of adapting, but I think we feel pretty good about where it landed. I think one thing that we did that I hope sort of brings the show to a place where both fans of the IP and newcomers can both appreciate it is we have always tried to make the team comprised of both longtime League players and lead developers, and then also people who are kind of coming in fresh out of Hollywood or just outside in general. I think that they really help give us both sides of the perspective on different audiences that might be coming to watch. So see it all for yourself as Arcane's beginning is on Netflix right now. So what do you think? What do you think of this look at League of Legends and how it's going to get even more in-depth via Arcane? Are you surprised that League of Legends took this path towards growing their mythology? Or are you just surprised that it took them this long to go and do something of this nature? What are your personal expectations for it? Let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on the channel.